Okay, so what I want to do is just give a brief introduction to how to use the TI-Nspire. So the first thing you do when you turn it on, this button right here where the on button is, there's a little home there. We call that the home menu. And so I just want to go through and show you how to use the basic functions on this, and then we'll dive deep into each individual function. So right here is just the calculator mode, and what this does is when I click on that tab, it opens up, well, let me back up here. When I click on this, it will open a tab that allows me to use the calculator like a calculator. So here's a calculator tab, and then because I went back and did it a second time, I have a second tab, and that's just basic calculator operations. So what I would do is like 9 plus 9 equals 18, and so on and so forth. I can go back to the home menu, and I can open up another tab, and by clicking on this, it opens up a graphing tab. So for example, if I wanted to graph the function 3 times x plus 2, I would do that in this tab, and then it shows me the graph. If I come back to tab number 2, I can still do my calculating, and if I go to the first tab that I haven't used, I could do even more calculating. Okay, so if I hit this home button again, then what I end up doing is I can come back to this home menu, and then I can also open up another tab, which is geometry. Now, whenever you open up a new tab, it just inserts it after whatever tab you left off on. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody, but here, this is the scale, and then I can use the geometry menu to go through and draw different geometric shapes or constructions. Next, I have this tab here, which is for spreadsheets. So if I wanted to enter in some data, like a list, I would do so here. So I'd put 2, 3, 4, and then I come over here and say 5, 6, 7. And so if I were to do statistical analysis, like I wanted to find some sort of correlation between, say, my x value, can't use that. I could put a label here basically. We'll talk more about that later. But that data is stored here, so I would say 2, 3, 4. And we'll come back to that in a second. So that's how I would enter in my list and enter in data. So this would be like list 1, this would be like list 2, list 3, list 4, and so on and so forth. If I go back to the menu, then I can do statistical analysis. And it says there's no list in this problem. We can go in and we can add different variables that were assigned. So if I were to click here, and we'll dive deep into that. But this would be my statistical analysis, how I would plot things and then find correlations. Next, I have a notes menu. When I click on that, that just allows me to type notes. So I could type anything I wanted to. There's software available from Texas Instruments, so let me give you an example. This is a tab, but Texas Instruments calls it a doc. I can write some notes here like a notepad. Now what's cool about this is I have all of these tabs that are still open. So this is my statistical one, this is my list or data, this is my geometry tab, this is regular calculations, and so on and so forth. So those are all still open, and this is the other calculation and my graphing tab. So those are all the docs that are open, and we'll talk about that in a second. So if I go back here and I click on the home button, the last thing that I can hit is this one right here. Now this one is a data collection option for vernier probes. So sometimes if I have a motion sensor or a temperature probe, vernier is a company that makes these probes that plug right into the calculator, and it will collect the data in real time and then display the data, and then there we can write programs that allow us to analyze the data. So that's the basics of the home menu and the different options that you have available. Okay. Now another way to create a new doc is you can actually go in here and just choose a new doc, and then it'll ask you if you want to save an unsaved document. I'm going to click no on that one. Through this menu, which I'm using my emulator, but I can just as easily scroll through this menu right here. So from the main menu, if I select new docs, and let me do that without using the mouse. So if I come here and I use my cursor and I select new document, it'll open up a drop screen menu, and then I just use the cursor to choose what type of document I want to add. There's two other things that aren't on the main menu. One is you can add a widget, and for example, if I wanted to add a stopwatch that's pre-programmed, I could do this. Let's add another widget, so I'm going to choose doc. Whoops. Let's go back to the home menu, use the cursor, new document. Do I want to save this one? No. Let's add another widget, and right now stopwatch is the only widget I have installed, but there's other widgets that you can add, and it's just a stopwatch that you could use, which is pretty cool. If I go back to the home menu, the last and final option would be a program editor. Now if I wanted to write a program for this, for example, if I wanted to write a program that automatically solved the quadratic formula, I could do this here. So I'm going to choose no library access. Well, let's do this library for fun. Okay, invalid name. Make sure. Oops. It's got to. There can't be a space. All right. So then I have to define what quadratic formula is, and so on and so forth. And then I would just write my program here. So I would seek an input and calculate the input, like A equals so on and so forth. And we'll show you how to write that program later. So that's the basics of the main menu on the TI-Nspire, and like I said, we'll have more videos that explain each individual program that you can use